Again, I do apologize for the broadcast. For those who are watching there, I believe we had over 10 viewers. And we have 75 players in this arena right now, including players. Again, I'm not sure about the NT ruling there, but that could definitely be useful at this moment right now. Alerts will also be muted for the time being, and at the end of the broadcast, I'll go ahead and shout that out outside of the CTFDL channel, but I'll leave those out of this. So those are definitely muted in respect to the league and whatnot. Again, welcome to all the people who are watching. As we wait momentarily for 1NT on the side of Team Verb, and then we can get this going. Who do you guys like to spectate tonight? Who's the guy that you're looking to see play and live up to expectations? Anybody want to add to that? Me personally, I haven't seen this player play in a while, and it's Plaps. Killer Engineer. I wouldn't say he's the person I would primarily go look for, but I'm happy to see him in, and there are a lot of good players, recognizable names here. One moment. Of course, when you have kids, there's unexpected level of interruption. That is to be expected. A lot of experienced players here. X5, Tyrael. Is there anyone here that you've seen play now that you haven't seen play in the mixes that you're curious if they still have what it takes to play at this level? I have fixed the issue for commentator voice in the broadcast. Thank you for those that spoke up about it. It's definitely something that I had to fix. But yeah, I am definitely curious. I haven't seen him play in a while. What do you guys think about Mites? Do you think he could shine in this match?
Arth, go ahead.
Well, Mites has an ability to shine. I'm just hoping it's in his play and not verbally. So be curious to see which iteration of him we get tonight.
Yeah, Mites can actually be a game wrecker like consistently on defense when he's playing well, but he's very hot and cold. He'll get tilted by something else, whether it's in the game or outside the game, and quickly change from like this A+ tier DMF to just totally unfocused and costing his team by arguing back and forth. So it'll be interesting to see if the turmoil we're seeing spill out in mixes and whatnot comes into the game, or if he just focuses and tries to get the win.
Quickly go back over the rosters while we have a minute here for the game to start. Again, this is We're All Friends versus Care Bear Countdown, and a captain for WAF is Verb. Teams Ruler, Iron, Karatank, Worth, Soup, Kaiser, Jim, Balza, Billet, Gungirl, Loaf, Technician, England, etc. And I'll continue on the other side. We have captain is Decker. Is Decker in tonight? I don't see him.
Yeah, he's online. I don't think he's in the
Okay, he's not
starting lineup.
playing.
It
Okay.
seems.
The Tyrael,
Could be
Flare,
coached.
Mites, X5, Chucky, Amok, Colossal, Captain X Power, Sabotage, Plaps, and 5. Again, just running through the roster real quick. And notable others. Again, the beautiful thing about the draft is everybody's able to be a part of the team. So it's definitely the first iteration of it, if not one of the revamped versions of it. And so this is pretty exciting stuff. How excited are you guys to see competitive play again here in CTF?
Yeah, I think it's cool. I mean, I've been back in the community maybe like 3 months, just doing mixes some nights and then some time off in between. I think competitive play is good. I think it's also a little dangerous this early into the resurrection of the game. If people are taking this too seriously and then things are going wrong and they're losing because of things out of their control, you're going to see grown men throwing a fit. And that's really ruining the fun for a lot of people. Once you see like the crazy toxicity come out of this game that we enjoyed 20 years ago, it becomes less fun very quickly.
Of course, and a lot has happened since then, right? People have gotten older, people have gained experience of life, but not to mention it does make the game not fun. And we're trying to bring new players into the game, so we'll definitely give a shout out to everybody who's tried to get this back together. And we'll shoot out some links here later. People can get back into the game if they want to, and it's free on Steam.
It looks like Verb Team did have England show up, so they do have 10 players. They're not going to need a sub, at least to start with. And then just looking back at their roster versus the draft, so they're missing 3 of their top 8 picks tonight, at least for now. I don't know if they have late logins coming or whatnot, but it's funny in hindsight because when Decker was drafting his team, a lot of us were joking like, hey, these guys don't participate in the mixes and OVDs. Are they even going to show up for this? Well, their team's actually the one that almost has perfect attendance tonight on their top 10 picks. So I can admit a lot of us were wrong on that and just didn't understand the time zone constraints on the other teams. We saw that also in Mixon's game the other night, where he was missing, I think, 4 projected starters. Just late timing schedule of the match, they couldn't get everyone aligned.
It's going to be interesting because it looks like Bird's team has decided to run Ruler as SL. So I'm guessing that's out of necessity.
Yeah, it's definitely not something you want to do. Ruler being one of the best fighting players in the game, you don't want to stick him in that class. He can still be impactful, sure, but his impact, whether it's BMF, OMF, O heavy, just one of those core fighters, is so much higher than that of an SL. I think during their draft, we were projecting that Jim was going to be their squad leader. But again, Australian time zone doesn't line up with this. Jim's getting ready for work right now. Not expecting him to show up.
It is unfortunate. Again, other players get a chance to play, but it is unfortunate that you have players like 15th, 16th that aren't able to show. That is part of the league. I guess you will have those attendance issues here and there. It could cost you as well.
I think a lot of it'll flow into like a lessons learned when this little miniature league is over. I think in total the league runs for like 3 weeks. 2 weeks of a blended regular season featuring group play, and then 1 week of playoffs and a title match. I think ZMN, who put a lot of this together, he'll look back and realize like, yeah, I needed to be more open to understanding the time zone constraints and whatnot, really lock in availability. As someone that didn't sign up, I didn't necessarily see the forum. I know there was something on the forum that said, are you available for these weekends? I'm not sure if it specified the fixed time windows projected for games, but from what we've seen, it's like 115 people signed up for this event, but there's only maybe 60 to 70 who can actually make these games at these regular times for us. So I think it's lessons learned. They may have to be more flexible in scheduling going forward, but we'll see a few weeks from now.
For sure. We have 4 matches lined up tonight. If I'm not mistaken. Is this actually on?
Yeah, this is live.
This is live, and we're a go.
Go, 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 go.
Flare picks up the first flag. And then again, we'll have a multi-base setup here on stream. Flare's info right now.
Your tank get a flag?
and Flair and company are setting up at A7.
Yeah, and on the
That
other
is to be
side,
expected.
you'll see Verb's team setting up at F4. So this was kind of expected because we've seen Chucky in a lot of mixes run into D6, get in and out like we played in CTFPL so many leagues. And these longer stretch bases where you have the turrets angled further back, it's harder for the JT to get to that flag room. So they do make this base selection based on Chucky being in the game, whereas if they were running a power offense on Flair's team, I would have expected them to take D6 instead of F4.
They're not running two heavies though, so is Solo projected to be the D heavy there, or are they running 3 DMs?
We're not going to know until probably the second run goes through. It could just be 3D imps out of the restricted player base. As we know, they don't have many subs available tonight, so probably just running what they can.
Looks like we got some action here at F4. No turret damage, probably a little bit on the MG, but nothing too critical. Looks like they are missing one player on offense so far, so they're just getting things going, kind of keeping the defense on their toes.
Yep. And then on the other side at A7, you've got Solo trying to set up. And for him to be effective in setup, it's got to be coordinated with these M's. The one thing all of us watching this game don't know is what the comms sound like. In a typical game, you're going to have someone in offense leading your comms saying, hey, let's go, I've got the rep for it, and that's going to open up that 3-second window for the heavy to move. But we won't know, maybe if someone's recording this, we did get to see it from Axis' point of view, where you saw Jackie, who most people know, who's making a lot of these calls. And it's really important running a power offense that someone's calling that out.
We had Chucky grab the flags momentarily, and that's the one thing about a JT offense, right? Is they're gonna try and try and try again. If they can do it like a TD and out, sentry down, kill the medic, they can get a lucky run, right?
Yeah, especially, they're playing against a medic who doesn't have much experience in CTF, from what I understand. The Loaf Pincher is not some seasoned veteran that knows the ins and outs of these sabotage the flag room offenses. We'll see how he can do holding off Chucky, who's got plenty of experience with flagging bases unexpectedly.
We'll see if we can get a multi-view here on stream, if you can kick things going. While I do that, Angelus.
Yeah. So, at F4, they're kind of rushing. They're going RT first. Personally, as someone that plays offense, I'd prefer to go MG first, especially when you have so many imps on your offense. So I know we have a lot of skirmishers who are new to the zone. They're asking like how things work. A lot of things that aren't realized by offense is dead zones on turrets. So if you can focus an MG and turn it red, you can then dead zone the other MG and sit there as immortal, creating all this space without taking damage. And we don't see that a lot. But with someone like Flair on offense, which is another unexpected turn, I think we'll see some of that tonight. Where they'll push, they're going to red an MG, then he's going to dead zone between them, draw attention to it. Yeah, so someone asked what dead zoning means. So there's minimum range to the projectiles that come out of these turrets. So if you stand right on top of them, the projectiles cannot hit you, they'll just go through you. You can then abuse that in a way where you're taking up the space and you're kind of circling around the turret to preoccupy it, but then it's not a threat to your team. I like what Verb's team is trying to do on offense. There's clearly someone instructed Camo to go for that back MG. If you look at the angles available to hit the turrets, you can hit the back MG from the top or the RT, because the sentries are blocking the bottom. If they can get set up with like a one-man advantage, you'll see an MG drop much faster than an RT.
That sentry's placed too high up at A7. He doesn't have to go up in order to hit both the RT and the MG.
Yep. And then Chucky almost gets the RT at F4. Doesn't quite finish it. That's another thing people miss sometimes. RG damage into an RT, you're looking between 14 and 16 damage. Or with a frag grenade, you can double that. So that's also another reason it's, I'd say, better in most cases to take out the MG first. Easier to kill, allows you guys to move forward faster. It's also much easier to get inside the RT range and kind of disable it temporarily.
Flair switched to infill and immediately has results. He isolated the 2 DMs, easy picks.
Yeah, Loaf's got to be careful here. Kind of lucky that Chuck bounced on that bottom corner, otherwise he was out with one of the 2 flags. 2 piles in this case.
I feel like if he didn't bounce.
It was either a bounce or a rep charge from Verb. Either way, it was a good play.
I think he bounced off the bottom left physic trying to squeeze out, but can't know for certain.
Which offense do you see has more capability to have successful flag out? Do you think Chucky will eventually just kind of get them, eventually with the inexperienced medic?
Yeah, I mean, they almost did that time. Like Hurt said, Flair quickly changed to info. The DMs were not ready for it, so they got ISO'd. And then you saw the quick 4-man burst into the flag room. And that's a really tough spot as a medic when you have 4 people coming at you and one of them's an info. So you're getting drained, there's a disruptor threat, you can't play the walls. You really just gotta try to keep your energy up and not drop because you may be the last bit of PD there.
I see Flair changing it up again. He's back to infantry, so he's definitely going to keep them on their toes. And that means that he'll probably have to carry ES, right? More likely to carry something that just the expected info here.
Yeah, that's been really controversial in this iteration of infantry, where you can change class without speccing and everything. So I think it was Axis did recently do that development that shows, hey, an info's been put in, you get the big cloaker notification, but there are a lot of people that are upset about how quick it is built, because a lot of these infantries base their item sets on not needing space for ES, whereas when most of us played, if you played defense, you just fit it in. And when you saw an info came in, you would turn the ES on. So I think more and more people are adjusting to that, but if not, they need to get on board, because I don't see it changing outside of that.
Right, there are pros and cons to it. You do still need 500 energy to change classes, right? So there's it's not just super easy, but as well as it kind of makes it a little bit more strategic, and more awareness on the defense to know if there's an infiltrator in. And they do have a chat as well, but the chances of them noticing it might be slim, because if they're fighting, they might not notice it.
Yep. This is where things get a little bit strange at F4 really quick. So Chucky's sitting there G9ing from the back, when, in my opinion, if you're running a JT, you've got to have a higher like displacement move impact. Whether it's you're flying around and you're trying to get them to chase you, or you're bouncing them with GL. I think there's way more value in that than there's with G9ing. And one of you mentioned it a while ago, it is surprising to see F4 set up despite having the 3D infant. This is a very heavy favoring base, and it looks like they just don't have a heavy on the roster tonight that can play the position.
Right. Typically, in a wider base, the heavy is favored, right? Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Same as A7.
Long hallways.
Long hallways, space for that MML to fly. And a lot of times, like in CTFPL years ago, Titan was the preferred side. But Decker's team having Tyrael, who's one of the best D heavies in the game, they chose that for him to play. It's his preferred base, he can get spacing in it, he's comfortable there, makes perfect sense.
Yeah, great base for Tyrael, and I know he's probably going to end up being #1 kills in this match. Typically, he's a high kill count SD heavy.
It's just looking like a clear at A7. Ooh, maybe?
Yeah, close. We bounce back, restabilize. SL probably has to heal up a little bit with the pin.
Is there any up-and-coming player that that you guys know that's unspec that you're interested in seeing how they play?
Yeah, so I mentioned earlier, I don't know a lot of the folks on Decker's squad. These guys just haven't been part of the kind of mixed OVD community going on recently. I've seen Solo Camo play in a handful of games, I mean, the past 2 weeks. He does seem like a capable heavy, given the right instructions, so if I'm identifying anyone, I'd probably pick out Solo.
Be curious to see how Solo does, given there's a lot of veteran leadership on that team with Verb, Ruler, Iron. Hopefully they can tell him, hey, this is where you're supposed to stand in position, these are the weapons you're supposed to use.
Yeah, and if you look at F4 right now, they have slowed it down. So they've got a big swing. Verb's not going to be able to keep up with all that damage without rev. So the RT is going to go down. There's no sentry blockers to really start that. And I kind of harped on that in the post game of Vixen's first game in the draft league. Chucky's flying in, there's hardly any opposition. This could just be out onto the 10-man.
Just gotta get that sentry down. The sentry's still
Sentry's
there.
still
Up.
Up. DSL's also there.
Wow.
I'm sure Ruler has TD. Hopefully we don't see the bug where they get summoned out despite TD, and then they can reevaluate from here.
That was very surprising. I do feel like they missed their opportunity there. They got the medic down, no sentry. Sentry was still up. They probably could have been out.
Yeah.
Hello?
Welcome, welcome. We have Novus. How are you doing?
Yep. I'm doing great. We can finally talk. How are you gonna leave Kev with power to do this, but then not know how to unsuppress? It's all good. How you doing?
We're doing alright. We're catching this action here at E4. Almost got the flags out. But I think they're stabilizing. They get the rocket up, MG up.
Yeah, and you'll see they did have the extra count there. They had an extra fighter there to give Verb time to finish building the base. And even now, it's not all the way back up. They're still missing an MG turret, potential second plasma as the new meta seems to be, and Flair's team is trying to punish them. Now that's up to the medic right there to make a play. Misses, gets bailed out by the turret. That's
And
where
it
the
did seem
inexperience of these
like-
medics is tough.
Right, and it did seem like the defense was short a player or two for quite a while. I don't know not sure what happened there. But there was like 5 attacking versus 2. Or 4 versus 2.
So Flair was in for that run. He did have a nice ISO that resulted in one of them dying, but I'm not sure about if they had another person down.
Pat,
It looks...
Blink, we got
Ack,
blink.
big blink by Ack.
I would think they wouldn't get a lot of turret damage here. Looks like they're just setting up. They're not going in. They're just getting turret damage as they're getting flanked from behind, from the defense.
The one thing you don't see often here is you saw Ruler come home immediately when we saw that blink. So that's someone making the call, whether it's Verb on their comms or Loaf on their comms. Someone saying, we're getting blink, and even Ruler knows against the JT he's a source of TD. So it was cool to see him come home and help with that. He also served as front reps to keep those turrets up.
That's very, very interesting. You typically don't see that, especially in this draft league. That's very, very cool to see something like that.
I think it's also a bit of necessity where they are playing with some, unexperienced players outside of pub. So you don't have that full trust in them that, yeah, okay, the 8 people that should swing home are going to swing home. Maybe he just does it as a panic route. Right now, Flair's running deep. 4 of these imps don't have ES. Flair is at the turrets, and no one on the other team knows it.
Let's see how much damage they can get on these turrets this time around.
Loaf not
Rockets at
moving. He's
70.
got to be looking at Chuck here. He's out. Loaf just
Chucky's
getting
almost
no
out.
healing or something.
Chucky's almost out. Yeah, Worth just get the kill. They are really struggling here at E4.
Yeah, they're getting blinked on. They're getting stormed on. The inexperienced medic seems to be a little bit overwhelmed.
they are really taking advantage of this inexperience. You can tell because Verb has both sentries in the flag room. He is not using one as a blocker at all.
What was crazy about that one is they saw the storm coming in, but Loaf just kept staring at the wall. Like, his attention has to be on the JT. That's just what you have to do as medic, and Earth knows that better than I do.
Materials now on offense, but I do think, from my perspective, that Flair's kind of making it hard for them. He's going to infantry, then info, and they're just kind of creating chaos there. And they have a couple players swinging home now at E4 to kind of sustain this, hold off this pressure.
Yeah, so they did lose some more turrets on that last storm. Verb's not able to mine the whole game like he wants to. Right now he's out mining while they're basically getting pushed. So you'd expect the comms on that team to be, hey, we need 8 to 9 people home until we stabilize and build up some sort of tox count.
The biggest shame is just seeing all of these DMs without ES. Flare gets behind them consistently. It's just a no-no. Even if you don't have it toggled on, you should be carrying it anyway.
And it's announced. I mean, it's coming across every time he changes.
Yeah, you have no one to blame except for yourself.
Big numbers
Typically,
here.
right. Here's a big attack. Chucky's going for the flags. How many flags does he grab this time? He grabs 3 of them. Can he get out? We'll see if he can get out. Yep. Soup got him.
Lands on Soup
Sentries
said,
pull up.
Can they summon Flare?
He's going to be out. Medic's going to drop. Yeah,
Yep,
10
Flare got the flags, and we're They now have all 5 flags. Oh, he got summoned for his SL, not his medic. So
The
he's
Verb's
home.
team is
He's
also
home
down
now.
1 currently. They only have 9 people in.
They're probably doing a sub for 10 man. That's my best guess. The other team is
I don't know.
already pushed up at the choke point. Colossal goes down. So does Flaps.
Ward gets subbed to back end, so he's the missing person.
Can they hold
Very
this choke
thankful
for a
to
good
Temple.
sub for a good 10 man?
So with Flair holding flags, I don't know. That's not what PT wanted to happen in this case. He was likely one of their designated 10-man inputs. And as we know, when you're holding, you can't get up to that choke. So he's just now dropping. He's infantry. We'll see if he's going to change class. Do they have other folks in info? What it looks like.
Yeah, PT just went to 3 infos, and there's still only 1 on Verb side.
It's not looking very good for this 10-man offense. They did have the choke held, but then they had 3 deaths happen consecutively, and they were not able to hold that choke.
Yeah, barring any miracle, this one's over. They gave up the middle of the base, and once you do that, unless you have a deep blink or something, there's just no coming back. In this case, I think they actually got cleared. No blink. This one's over.
Attention, all objectives have been captured.
I did see a bit later in the game, Gun Girl did log in. It'll be interesting to see when this team plays next, do they try a different medic out? You know, they don't have a very experienced medic between Loaf Pitcher and Gun Girl, who were drafted back-to-back. Do they change it next time to get the comms advantage? Are they worried about the performance? I would expect to see a different medic in next time.
That is game. A lot of players did kind of feel like Verb's team may have had the edge here, but the other team was really powerful. Flair switching up, Infel, Inf, and Chucky's JT offense. It was kind of hard, too much pressure for them to handle.
Yep.
So you were saying Loaf Pincher's a newer medic?
Yeah.
Brand new.
Brand new. Okay.
Like public
So-
1 medic.
If you take a look at the score and just compare specifically the medics, Amok went 3-3 and Loaf Pincher went 0-4. So it's kind of like, was Loaf Pincher playing like in any aggressive form to put pressure on the SL or anything like that to disrupt offense, to get opportunity to swing?
I think Loaf was purely focused on healing and summoning, which, again, against the JT offense, your medic's got to be focused on the JT. All that havoc was caused because Chucky was never getting tranked coming in. He was getting a free pass to the flag room where any kind of chaos can happen once they get there.
As soon as that JT looks like he's made up his mind, like this is the flagging run, correct, you're not paying attention to your DMs anymore. It's just a 1v1 battle with you and the JT at that point.
Right. So it's from there it'll be an experience for him, so he can be better than the basic medic that just heals and summons.
Yeah,
The
Chucky
main problem now is
had a
that there's
field
just
day.
not enough JTs in the game anymore. Other than Chucky, and that's nice when he shows up, it's hard to get experience versus a JT offense.
Yeah. It looks like consensus is people are a little bit surprised about the outcome, but we talked about it going into the game. You know, Verb's team, it did look very strong at draft, but of their top 10 picks, they only had 6 tonight. So you go down into further depth where you have pub players who don't know organized play, that's a lot harder to organize against a team of veterans who did show up. Like you look at the team Flair and Decker had here, all these guys played back in the day. Sure, they don't play as much now, but they know the ins and outs of the game.
Yeah, you were mentioning about how they picked their team was stacking their defense, right?
Yep.
So I think the correct strategy, especially with the lack of experience in these newer players, is to pick strong support players first. Then you can pick your fighters after. And this is the case. You're lacking a strong support player, and then you fall apart because of that.
Yeah, it could be, and you could have a strong argument for that. You know, we're going to see Metal Squad Takuteko play here soon, and he drafted back-to-back supports to start off the draft, whereas everyone else was taking fighters. He took arguably the Med 1 and NG 1 off the board. So in that Snake at 6 and 7, he snagged both, trusts himself as one of the fighters. We'll see if he looks a little bit more stable than Verb's team did tonight.
And that's coming from an experienced captain.
Yep.
another example for support play, right? Your call on ruler. Uh, you're the man with the TD. You're the one that prevent. They're the support players are the ones that make all the major plays, right? Without the TD, the game's over. So just another thing that can be on another feather in the cap for the support players.
Yeah, you typically don't want to rely on your squad leader to really serve that role on defense. But again, in this case, with a bunch of new players, he kept going home just in case the medic wasn't prepared for it.
Right, of course.
I was very surprised to see that many veterans on the other team. Looks like they from the beginning they did have the better lineup. So that was a great draft. At least the results were in, and they won. But just their lineup itself, I think they did a good job drafting those players.
Yeah, I mean, you can't argue with results. They ran that game start to finish. At the very beginning, maybe the first two pushes of Verb's team looked like they were doing turret damage, set up at the top of A6. But after that, they were pushed to the bottom and out to A3 for the rest of the game, while they couldn't stabilize at F4.
Do we know who the official MVP was for that match?
The official MVP was Sabotage.
That was like
Interesting.
sabotage.
Who do you guys think your MVP was if you were to choose?
Yeah, I think even without knowing what the comm situation was, I would guess it was Flare. We saw two really good successful info storms. Then we had a third storm by Captain Axe, which we talked about before. We don't have many of these aggressive SLs who are willing to risk it in Beacon. But it really looked like Flare was making the big plays, realizing, hey, these guys don't have ES, you can be patient, don't attach and give it away. I'm just imagining that's what the comms were. And then they show up and 6 people are on top of the RT. It's really hard for a defense to react. So I'd credit Flare for most of that success.
I agree with that assessment. I would have given it to Flair as well. Him switching back and forth between infill and infantry kept them on their toes. Once he saw how badly he could take advantage of them not paying attention to his infill switches, yeah, he went for the throat.
I'm gonna give it a Chucky because he's the one that's pressuring the medic that doesn't know how to fight a JT.
Yeah, I think that's fine too. I would imagine they called that out and said, "Hey, who's this guy?" They realized he's more of a new player, and Chuck probably said, "Let's just keep rushing him."
I don't think there was I don't think it was that well planned out. I think it's just coincidence.
Well, I will say again, for a lot of these players, Chucky being one of them, they're spending between 2 and 4 hours, 4 to 6 nights a week sitting in a mix arena. So we are playing in a small community where most people know like player capabilities, competencies, what they're good at, what they're not good at. So if you're hearing from other people, "Hey, this player is new," and you've never seen this person in organized play, I think it's a fair assessment that they're not going to be ready for what you can throw at them.
Yep.
I would agree. I think you could choose between Flair or Chucky. My vote would have been Flair just because of the change up on offense. I mean, the JT is consistent, but yes, there was a lot of pressure. But I think either one could have been MVP. So great point, Novus, and I think we could all agree that either one.
Don't get me wrong. Flair is an influential player, but in my opinion, right? And we're all entitled to our own opinions.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I think overall, and you recognize my thought process that Chucky had an influence as well. But
It's hard to go
but
wrong
if
with a
you
lot
want to
of
break
picks.
down overall like skill contribution, yes, I agree. Flair definitely contributed more there.
I mean, you could pick almost anyone that was showing up on offense at F4 that game and make a case for why they should have been MVP. Because, I mean, they were pressuring that base from start to finish. There was no dead time. And we kept talking about, okay, they swung home to give Verb time. Every time they swung home, they were getting stormed on right when he left, or Chucky was running deep and people were attaching. So everyone that played offense on Decker and Flair's side was just outstanding that game.
Cool.
It was cool too because for a lot of us that are in this small mixed community and we're seeing people play every night, we see X5 as someone that plays squad leader in most of the games, or he's playing like a utility class or a call inf on defense. But to see him on offense all the time, not as SL, that was cool. Like maybe people didn't realize he could play that effectively. Maybe they've been having these practices that don't get too much exposure or details leaking out. You just don't know. But maybe this team came in with a lot of confidence with their offense that the rest of us just didn't know about.
How many experienced players were on that offense?
For Flair's team,
Yeah.
They were all experienced players.
Oh yeah, then that's easily confident.
Yeah, Chucky's is pretty hard to handle, especially for a new player to come in there. Um, it definitely would have been a better matchup. You would have had experienced medic there to kind of keep an eye on JT because it's really a JT kind of versus the medic. Obviously, the infill is there to apply pressure and move the defense around. But if the medic can't get the good trank or stuns and whatnot on that JT, it's going to be a tough night.
All right. So, uh, break this down to me. This is mainly for the noobs out there. But can you explain a JT offense and essentially how does that work as opposed to your traditional offense or a heavy offense?
Yeah, so I'll take a stab at that from the offensive side, and then I'll defer to her to say how you're going to defend against it, because medic is the most critical part. From the offense in this case, they ran 3 inf JT some of the game, 2 inf infill JT the rest of it. With that infill, that is a very strong burst offense where you're trying to push down slowly, mitigate damage incoming to your offense, not necessarily trying to kill people, but you want to be healthy when you get to the turret. Once you get there, the infill can isolate someone, help you kill them, or that infill could just push you straight into the turrets and give you that invulnerability window to explode into the flag room or try to, zerg down a turret, as we would say. When they have the 3 imps, then though, that's more of a killing offense that shows up with a lot of power if they get a pick. If one of the DMs plays out of position, like we saw some in this game, then all of a sudden you have a JT who's threatening the medic and the flag room in this case, and 3 imps in front of him with this huge shield of reps and incoming explosive damage to the turrets. So a traditional offense, like we'd say a power offense, is a much slower offense than a JT. And it's not just about the movement speed of a JT. When you're playing with a heavy, you're relying on that EB to help push you because the heavy is not offering a ton of push into the offense. It's offering the slow moving turret destroyer. So you want to set up, you want to protect the heavy, you want to
Hey,
play with your SLVB.
sorry to interrupt you, Mister multi-time PL champion. Um, but these noobs, they don't know what an EB is, so it's
Yeah,
like
that's a fair call.
we're
So
running down, draining their asses, and then blasting them with RGs.
yeah, so Hert's favorite weapon in the game is the utility weapon, the electron beamer, a different class beamer since Joe kind of reorganized it years ago. This is the biggest drain weapon in the game. It drains your energy and puts a minor pause on your energy. So when you're playing with an offense where you want to focus on killing the other side more so than you want to focus on flagging it, you want to get their energy low by using that EB to your advantage. Whereas when you're playing with a JT offense, that SL can't really afford to be that aggressive. He can't be up there with them because there's no one to turn and help him if he gets flanked. That JT offense I mentioned before, it's bursting once it gets to the turrets. They're not going to sit there too long. They're going to get a pick and they're going to go. With a heavy, that offense is more sitting there, killing the turret, over seconds. You look at a heavy taking down a turret, and for example, a lot of people don't realize this. I brought it up earlier in the game. If you have a heavy in the game and they set up an AC line on the turret, you're looking at between 7 and 8 shots to take down an MG, and that does not take a long time. An RT, you're looking at I think 9 to 10 shots. If you don't have that, it's a lot easier for the team to rep. So we're looking at a JT offense featuring Chucky. There's not a sustained turret damage threat. The reason we saw so much turret damage was the other team was disorganized and they weren't getting the push out, where there's no one holding that position on the offense, but the defense is still just backing up, backing up, backing up, getting stormed 3 times in 4 minutes. There's no recovery time. And then Hurt, if you can talk about what it's like to be a medic against a JT, like how is it different playing a JT versus a heavy? Because in my opinion, medic's one of the most important parts of any defense.
It is because, for contrast, when you're a medic against a power offense, as a medic, you're not typically in danger because they're targeting your turrets, they're targeting your DMs, they're not targeting you. Against the JT, you're now one of the primary threats. So if they all show up at the flag room and you've done very little to no damage to them, you have now all of a sudden you have a JT coming at you along with 3 imps that are looking to put you down because you're one of the TD providers, and they're just looking to get flags and out. The difference between that and, let's say, power offense is now you have to pay way more attention to your positioning. You're paying attention. You have to play more defensive, but you can't go 100% defensive because as a medic, it's also your job to put pressure on this SL. Otherwise, they're going to be there all game, and you're never going to get a break. It's As a medic, it's very hard. It's a lot of pressure. It's way more. It's way more thought intensive as well because you're now balancing DF HP because you can't just completely neglect that. You have to pay attention to your own energy levels. It's a lot to take in. And unfortunately, like I said earlier, there's just not a lot of practice anymore versus a JT offense because there's so few of them in the game. So I completely understand why it's hard for these medics now to just they don't understand it.
All right, so if I'm following all these PL champions, it's the JT offense is looking to uh, run in, uh, take out all of the things that prevent teleports, and then grab flags as fast as possible. Right? That's the offense's idea.
That's priority number one. Priority number two is typically to do turret damage. Like once they assess, hey, we're not getting the 2 sentries and the medic, their immediate focus is going to be on whatever turrets are right in front of them and do as much damage as possible.
Right. That's the secondary goal. But then in if you were playing a heavy offense, that would be the primary goal, right?
Correct.
Okay. And then from the medic standpoint, or rather the defense's standpoint, the medic obviously is the defense, right? It's a huge issue if the medic ever dies, and we see how influential that can be when a medic gets killed through a wall, and they cry about it and like, oh my god, it's the biggest problem in the world, right? So the medic is very important to defense, and uh, remember I brought up their deaths. Uh, Loaf Pincher only died 4 times, and Amok died 3 times. But Loaf Pincher is dealing with the annoying JT trying to run in there and be harass him. So I'll give credit to him. He actually only died 4 times, given the offense that he's dealing with, and Amok is not dealing with that. Uh, he's fighting the power O, as you will, right? So uh, it's he actually did a pretty good job. He's just not, as you mentioned, uh, accustomed to fighting the JT.
It's hard though to really use deaths as kind of the barometer of a medic performance because if you have very little deaths, but you're not doing any pressure versus the SL, then again, you're not really doing the full responsibilities of the class.
Absolutely, and that falls back to medic is a key player. It is an extremely hard class to play, and if you're striving out there to be like a really good player in this game, is to actually play medic in that support role well. Like you are a high impact player. A OM for a DM falling here and there is not like the end of the world, but if the medic dies, like we have a problem.
Correct. Medic kind of serves as like an amplifier for your D. Like just by yourself, you're not really gonna do much, but by being in the right positions and landing stunners, timely deluxe heals, hitting EBs on the right angles to flush OMs into the right positions, you basically take whatever percentage of efficiency your offense or your defense is at and you amplify it by you could do 2 times, 3 times. It's a very key role if you know what you're doing.
So both you, Hearth, and Angelus both mentioned this, but it's an extremely important part of this game. But space control. So uh, a lot of how this game works is pushing into areas and controlling that space, like setting up boxes, for example, for a heavy. So how would both of you guys um, approach that, like controlling an area or taking over a space or defending a space from like an offense and defensive standpoint?
Yeah, I think from the offensive standpoint, speaking on either side, we'll just talk about JT first because that's what we saw in the last game. You want to take over the space right before the turrets. That's kind of your regroup. Let's get ready for that burst I keep mentioning. So to take it over, you're looking for an isolation pick. And you always have like this fighter's advantage at the early stages of attacking a base because usually at worst it's 3 versus 4 with the 4 being on offense. The medic's not going to be up front in the front lines. The heavy's either going to be too far back or the engineer's not going to be up front. So you got to take advantage of that numbers and get your pick. Once you have your pick, you can set up that burst in front of the turrets for that JT explosion we talked about before. Whether it's rushing a RT, an MG, going straight to the flag room for TD and out, it's all set up maybe 6 seconds before you see them push into the RT range. On the other side, when you're running like a heavy on offense, you want to own the space right before the turrets, but not so you can burst through it, just so you can anchor it. So I talked about this in the match the other night. When you have a heavy that's set up on a turret with AC, it does so much damage that it forces the DMs to come get him. If the DMs cannot get him, or the D heavy cannot move him, they're going to lose that base. So it's not so much about moving forward and taking up all this space on the turrets. You want to own the space as far as you can from the turrets where your heavy can still take it at the safest angle.
Shoot the turrets. Don't die.
Looks like they went for a quick recycle.
That would explain all the disconnects.